Okay. Hi, this is Helen Hillix, your host for From My Heart to Yours. And I am really, really excited today to welcome Lucas Mack to the show. I'll tell you a little bit more about him in a couple of moments, but I want to talk about the series that I'm doing of men's issues and what it's like to be a man in this modern world. How crazy are all the messages that men receive from society and their wives, and the Me Too movement and the Gillette commercial that has caused such an uproar about, really a lot of pro and a lot of backlash. So it's a crazy time to be a man in the world. You don't really know who you're supposed to be. Are you supposed to go with those traditional values of, you're supposed to be strong and stoic and not need any help? And if you've had traumas, just, pull yourself up by your bootstraps and move on? Or are you supposed to be the sensitive guy that, shows his heart, and then that scares his wife to death because he might quit his job and not be the provider anymore? So it's just a crazy time. And I'm having, several different men on the show. Lucas is one of them, but Lucas, I thought, was the perfect guy to start off this series because he's done it all. He's been an entrepreneur, he's an author, he's a speaker, he's a consultant and podcast host of both The Vulnerable Hero and The Golden Rule Revolution. He has worked for companies like Microsoft and T-Mobile and Mod Pizza and more, and he's dedicated time to help those companies come up with ideas and products and services and help their employee engagement. And he's won awards all over for, TV and other media for his work with those companies. And so he's a real powerhouse in business. And he's also recognized for his storytelling because he used to be a host and writer and producer for ABC, NBC, and Fox affiliates. And he's also the author of the book, Everyone Has a Plan Until They Get Punched in the Face, which I love that title. It's a guide to developing a passionate and authentic story in order to achieve results. So it's pretty clear that Lucas is a very successful guy in lots of different ways. And on the personal side, I know a little bit. I want Lucas to tell more about, his childhood of being raised in an abusive home and having all the trauma that's associated with that, and how that has propelled him into transformational work and healing his heart and coming to the mission in his life where he wants to bring that process to men. And I'll let him tell all about that in a moment. But I'm just so excited, and I want to say welcome and thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule. Lucas and I met at the Ascension Leadership Academy in San Diego, which is a really powerful transformational program. And he just told me that he is now training to become one of the leaders of one of the processes that they do, one of the weekend processes. So that's so awesome too, Lucas. And so welcome. And I'd like to get your thoughts to start out with before I talk any more. I'd like to get you involved here and tell us about your thoughts in a general way about what it's like to be a man in this modern world. So welcome, Lucas Mack.
Thank you. Helen, you are an embodiment of love and safety, and I'm honored to be on this podcast. I'm honored.
Thank you so much.
Seriously, what it's like to be a man right now is unclear. Is the best way to say it.
In a word.
And here's why. I think for so long, men, specifically in Western culture, have been told to stuff down any sort of emotive ways of being that could be perceived as soft or feminine or weak. And so they have stuff for so long, generationally, not just since, the past 80 years. This is generation after generation after generation. And all that trauma and all that pain has to come out somewhere. It has to be released somewhere. And one of the things that I've been sharing with men, the feminine energy and the masculine energy have nothing to do with male and female genders. And this is something that I want men to understand. When every mother drops down the X chromosome, every human being on planet Earth starts in the feminine. And the father either adds an X chromosome and we get a female, or adds a Y chromosome and we get a male. But we are all created to, or made to, our body's origin is to receive. And the receiving is the feminine. And we as men have a beautiful, I think, responsibility and gift to be the protectors of reception. So for men, if they're not seen as the safest person in the room, I think there's something that is causing that to either they're be seen as aggressive or they're seen as unable to protect. And both of those are out of balance for a man to be strong and stand in his power, stand in our power, for me to stand in my power, but also in that power, letting everyone know that I'm safe. And I would never use the power that I have to you. I will always use the power that I have for you to protect you.
Well, let me ask you something. Are you thinking that the power to protect is a man's responsibility because men are typically bigger and physically stronger? I'm not arguing. I'm just wondering because I have not grown up with that idea that a man is going to protect me necessarily.
It's not physically taking care of one. It's really has to do with, I think, the Y chromosome of where the testosterone comes in, where men just have more of that assertive, go forth,
Penetrating.
the penetrating. So it simply is the ability predisposed to, if there's a threat, I will protect my tribe, I'll protect this room, I will be protectors. But men can only be seen as safe if they heal the trauma that's within them. So what happens is when men start to unpack all the trauma, all the pain, all the tears that have been stuffed inside that, men don't cry, and then it starts to come out. I think men right now don't know what to do with the internal turmoil that they're dealing with. So they're trying to solve the lack of vulnerability, the lack of feminine, the lack of receiving through the masculine side. So men are addicted to pornography or sports or all these things that they're trying to solve this need on the feminine side. They want love. They want healing. They want freedom. They want to feel better. No person on planet Earth wants to feel bad, but they're going about it through the masculine as opposed to becoming vulnerable and allowing the process of healing to take place so that they can stand in balance. And what I share with men is, if you look at the Y chromosome, if it's not in balance, the Y cannot receive. The X can receive at all angles. The Y can only receive when it's in balance with feminine and masculine.
I love that.
A man must be in balance. A man must be vulnerable and a man must be heroic for, I think, every man to step into that place of comfort and healing and their own power.
Do you ascribe then to the idea that men and women are essentially different? Or because I've come to the place where, yes, of course, men are hormonally different, as you were saying, and anatomically different, which is obvious, and thank God for that. But but also, I really believe what you were saying about men is also true of women, that both men and women essentially long to get back to the experience of oneness.
Yes.
That's the spiritual way of talking about this, is that we all long to get back to that experience of oneness. That's the part of the ecstasy of sex, is that we are the closest to oneness that we will ever be as human beings. And that we all, we all need validation, love, acceptance, safety, as you were saying. And that, that feeling that we are with our tribe. Do you agree with that, that we're essentially the same in that way?
I think society gets to delineate between equal value, equal purpose, equal beauty, equal measure of our own existence. So every human being on planet Earth, every single breathing human being on planet Earth has the exact same value, be that male, female, black, white, gay, straight, whatever, religious creed, whatever philosophical, we are all breathing the same air. Therefore, we are all put on a level, the same playing field. And everyone gets to play their beautiful role that they get to step into. And I think, yes, men have, for instance, when I work with women who don't have, women who don't experience a safe male in their life usually have to step up their masculinity. So they become out of balance themselves, and they are still wanting to receive. So there's going to be one or the other. We can either accept our roles as men and women, not as greater than or lesser than, but simply complementary to complete, like you said, the oneness. Or we can try to assert, a man's going to try to heal that lack of vulnerability through the testosterone, and he's out of balance, as women will try to do the same thing. So as to speak directly and clearly to that, yes, men have their unique role to play. And I think that's to be the protector of all of humanity, to receive love. And when I say receive, I really believe the natural state of the universe is a flow of love. And when we get into the flow, when we access, if we actually removed the trauma, love would just enter in those spaces. If we poured out the water that's in a cup, something's going to fill that cup. And I think that's the natural state of what men and women get to do right now.
So you don't ascribe to the idea that men and women are both a balance of, what has typically been thought of as masculine and feminine traits, of that both of us are capable of receiving and protecting, to use your words.
One has an extra responsibility. I think men have an extra responsibility, but I do think, men and women both have the same, to live in balance of the masculine. Women need to live in the balance of masculine and feminine energy as well. And men have an extra job, I believe, to do. That's really, I think, and when we take that job away, men don't know what to do with that. And when they're not healed, and men get to know again that their job is to be the safest person in the room. So be strong. This is what I tell, we don't need any more macho men in this world. The macho men days are over.
We don't need the ones we've got.
Done. It's done. It's done. Men, the macho days are done. What we need is more courageous liberators of souls. We need people to stand in vulnerability and go to the depths and get gritty again, but not in an aggressive sense, but in the truth. And men to say, tell me everything. It's okay. I have gone through it. You've gone through it. We can heal together. That's what we need as men right now.
I love, love, love something you just said, Lucas, and that is get gritty in the battle of transformation instead of the bullshit of competition and ambition and domination and hierarchy and all of that, and God willing, warfare is out at some point too, because that too is a manifestation of that overemphasis on those quote unquote male qualities. I wish we could get rid of the whole delineation of male or feminine and masculine qualities and just call them, this is one, they're just all qualities.
Yeah. Well, that's what
Maybe
the
someday.
podcast I have, the vulnerable hero. I like the words vulnerable and heroic versus feminine and masculine. It just seems a little bit more like modern vernacular. Like being vulnerable is feminine and being heroic is masculine. And the hero, everyone looks at the hero. They have, you look at all these Marvel movies, these heroes have the ability to wipe out the entire planet if they want, and they choose not to. They choose to protect. It's beautiful.
They
And
choose love.
yeah, they choose love. So this is what I think, living in balance, and it all comes down to balance. And if we're out of balance, it's only going to produce results that are unhealthy in our life, and in whatever way.
I just love the addition of the idea that it really takes a lot more courage to go in, a lot more courage to go inward than it does to, like you were saying, to use pornography or to be abusive or whatever.
Yes.
So thank you very much for those comments, and I'm sure we'll get back into that, but I'd love to switch over at this point to your own story and have you get vulnerable with the audience and really share your own journey.
For me, I was raised in an incredibly confusing and fear ruled my life every single day. And it was not only being beat with belts but it was at any time. There was no trigger. There was no, if I did this, then the consequence would be this. It was at any time, which caused a lot of physical issues as a young kid. I sick, bleeding in my stool when I was sick, since I was in sixth grade, and just very, very sick. The trauma in the house was terrible. And at the same time, the public persona outside the home was, you better smile. If you don't smile, if you don't look as if everything's good, it's only going to be worse. So my whole existence became bifurcated on how I was supposed to be seen and what was the reality of what was really going on. And that continued for a long time until, I was 19 years old. I battled with anorexia. When I was 20 years old, I attempted suicide. And it was after that failed attempt of suicide that I really woke up and started to, in a way, break. It was the beginning of me breaking free of this path of wanting to die. And it never what the feeling of wanting to die in that, and it was, I felt wrong. Something was broken inside of me. Something just, I didn't work right. I didn't work like everyone else. And so after I attempted, when I was 20 years old, I tried to break free of this control in my life.
Control, meaning your family control?
Family control.
And I just want to throw in something here too. It sounds like you were raised in a household that made you feel like the world was an unsafe place. Not just your household, but we extrapolate out from that when we're children. Whatever we experience in the home becomes the paradigm of the whole world. And so why wouldn't you want to kill yourself and starve also? Because starving is a proof that you don't have any needs, because the needs aren't going to be met anyway.
Right.
You might as well learn to live without them, which of course leads then to wanting to die, because there's no way out if the whole world is dangerous and unpredictable as your household was.
And escaping was something I was really good at in my mind. All those times of being beat, having to be, had my clothes taken off and bent over and getting beat with belts. I went somewhere in my mind. I had to survive somehow. And
humiliation.
The
humiliation of the taking the clothes off.
It was crazy. It was literally crazy making. And I'm sharing this as, I know I'm not alone. I know I'm not the only person out there that has gone through these things. And yet what I did, and I think what a lot of people do, I did this podcast a couple weeks ago, and I said, are your badges of honor actually your shackles of shame? And because I justified, well, I was beat with belts. I went through all this insanity, this craziness, but I must be okay. I'm successful in business. I have family. I have 3 children. I must be okay. So it must have been okay.
I love that. Love that, because I was thinking that earlier, is you had every outward, again, that bifurcation of reality. You had every outward appearance of being completely a high functioning man in the world, and everything must be okay.
And it's hard to, for me, it was hard to understand why I still felt wrong. I felt broken. I felt like there was wires in me that didn't connect somehow because of what I had gone through. And so I called it getting sniped. I mean, through having 3 children, being incredibly successful in business and having a TV career, every 3 months, 6 months, I don't know, there wasn't a specific cycle, but I would call it getting sniped, where something would happen. I would feel incredibly insecure and I would become suicidal again. This was this pattern from 20 years old till 34 years old. Every 3 months, 4 months, something would happen. And I wouldn't tell my wife. What I would do is isolate. I started drinking more. I binged media. I just disassociated even in my home. And I felt judged. And this is what judgment is: the most nasty, nasty weapon on this planet. If we want healing to happen, we must stop judging people, because no one's going to share the truth that they're dealing with if they don't feel safe enough to share it.
I completely agree. And it's so hard because we have been taught to judge ourselves and others. We come from a whole society that's based on the authorities controlling us with shame.
Yes.
And what is shame other than constantly being judged?
Exactly.
So
and
I love that.
Well, I think for many men, it's hard because women want safety and security. That is a premise by which, when I help men and lead men in retreats, women want to feel safe. And if they don't feel safe from you, they're going to have to seek that safety other ways, and it's going to throw the balance out. But women want safety and security for the most part. This is a generalization.
And so do men.
And so do men. And when a man doesn't feel safe enough to share the truth of what's coming up for him in the home, if he feels judged by his significant other, then he will never share what's really going on. And possibly when he does share, it will throw off the balance of safety and security, like what we were talking about. If a man wants to start a donut shop after leaving a high functioning job, that throws off the balance of safety and security. And yet, if truth doesn't come out, there will be no freedom. There will be no true freedom for either of the individuals, because both will be living, one will be living in an assumption that they know what the other's thinking, and the other will be living in the bondage of a prison, this isolated prison of not feeling safe enough to share the truth. And so,
well, let me ask you something here. I mean, isn't the man, first of all, judging himself? And that's why he cannot tolerate being judged by the woman. If he weren't judging himself, he would be all about saying, hey, I feel suicidal again. I don't know why. And if she had a reaction, then, well, that's too bad. But he wouldn't be judging himself. I mean, it's just everybody's judging everybody.
Yeah, I think that's I think that is accurate, and we cannot live in isolation and remain healthy, I think. And so it takes, we have the butcher and the baker, we have the doctor. I don't want to perform surgery on myself. I go to the doctor to do that. And that's the beautiful thing about being in a relationship is, yes, I might be judging myself, but I also request your support in not judging me so you can help pull the truth out of me and help. And that's where we met at the Ascension Leadership Academy, it was the very first time in my life ever. I've been to church. I read the Bible after 20 years old. I read the Bible 7 times in 14 years, cover to cover. I read literature. I went so hard to know what is true, what is truth, what can I hold on to, what can I find for myself. And all the church and all the religion and all the groups and all the clubs and things that I did. Being at the Ascension Leadership Academy was the very first time in my life that I experienced unconditional love, where no one in there judged me. And it was the very first time I felt safe enough to really unpack. And I was in therapy because I started having flashbacks at 34. So from 20 to 34, I started having flashbacks, and I thought I was losing my mind. I remember laying on the rug with my hands, and my wife's there, and I'm like, "Are you here? Is this real? Like, tell me this." I mean, it was,
wow.
It was terrible. And in the Ascension Leadership Academy, I felt safe. And in therapy is beautiful, and everyone gets to work on their emotional health and overcome the stigma of therapy, especially men. Men, you get to go to therapy. You get to find a therapist that matches your needs and also holds you high. And unfortunately for the therapist, they have to take notes because there has to be a diagnosis if they're going to run it through insurance. And so even then, I don't think men feel 100% safe. You might feel 99.9% safe, but someone's still taking notes on you, and who knows where the notes go and whatever. So that was my experience. I loved my therapist. I massively healed and learned a lot of what a healthy way of being is, what a healthy father is, what a healthy human would do. And I'm not kidding you, Helen. Sometimes I would share what happened to me, and he's like, well, a healthy father would, do this. And it was like, the best way to describe it is I got a rod inserted in my brain. Like that knowledge did not exist in my own paradigm. And when he introduced that new thinking, and it made so much sense, it was like, of course, like, yes, that is healthy. And yet I never would have been able to cross that cavern.
Being an intuitive counselor myself, I of course believe in therapy.
Yeah.
And I want to emphasize what you said about finding the right fit, because we feel free to find the right hairdresser, and we feel free to find the right auto mechanic or whatever, but people sometimes don't feel like they have the right, or they want to take the time even to try out different people and find the really right fit. And man, you are giving this person an opening to your soul, and it better be somebody that you feel really safe with. And therapists aren't perfect; we're human beings, so you get to find somebody that really fits with you. And not all therapists do take notes, and I take notes because it helps me focus, and I send them to my clients. They get the notes; they get to see exactly what I'm writing. And I'm working out of taking insurance because I don't want to have that fear even in there that anything could ever come out in that kind of way. And I just feel like that's part of finding somebody that really fits you. And I love the addition of the Ascension Leadership Academy, because the group experience is so powerful in healing. You had the experience of your therapist really honoring and accepting and encouraging and lifting you up. But doing that in a public forum, there is nothing like that to break shame.
It was truly, if there's ever a term to use, born again, it was down there. I had a born again experience because I faced it for the very first time. I remember, being told, what's happening, go to that most painful moment, go there, now turn around and face face them in your mind, turn around. And it was like, it was terrible. I was terrified, but face them and then say what you want to say. And it's so empowering to know that we can heal. Quantum time's fascinating, where we can heal then as now by speaking to then as now. And there's really what is time at that point? And
totally agree.
It's incredible what we can really, if we get out of the binary ways of thinking of it's this or that, but it's this and that. It's both, and we can truly experience freedom. And so that's where I first experienced that unconditional love, and it's led me on this massive I want to say rampage or mission, because I call this where love is present, truth will come forth, resulting in our personal freedom. And truth is the mechanism when we share our truth, when we share our perspective of reality. It's just our perspective of reality. When we share our perspective, which is our truth, that enables us to be free to say whatever, whenever, to whomever, whenever. But truth is like a groundhog. This is what I learned at ALA. This is not what they teach, but it's my own experience, that truth is like a groundhog, and it wants to breathe. It wants to come out. It needs air, but it sniffs for judgment. And if any judgment is in that environment, it's going to burrow down so deep. And for so many, myself included, you almost forget the truth. You almost lose yourself. It's so deep in you that when's the last time you cried? When's the last time you shared vulnerably? When's the last time you took the mask off? And so I am on a mission to see hurt people get healed and healed people go out and heal others by the means of creating environments of unconditional love, so people can share the truth of their perspective, of their reality, so that they can experience freedom. And when men specifically, because I think women are really usually pretty good at this, or have been better historically, but men, when they get the invitation to come, just come, experience vulnerability, experience your own vulnerability. And I define vulnerability as the courage to experience love in its purest form. We must be courageous as all individuals to experience love, and to face the shame, to face the guilt, to turn around in your mind and look at the abuser right in the eye and say, don't you touch me. Really don't. And to stand in our power and then get it out of us so that we can receive love. Love wants to heal us. Love, the flow, the natural state. That's why I'm getting back. I believe the universe wants us healed. It is for our good. It is for our benefit. And
the highest good of all.
Highest good of all. Because that's why I joke around. What does love love? Love loves love. So love wants to always love. And so it always wants to create. It loves for the highest good of all. That is exactly right.
So is one thing that you said that, again, it just keeps me thinking about how much we impact one another and pick up each other's feelings. And I think that, you're not, just for your mission, you're not so much focused on the judgment of ourselves, not denying it, but you're not focusing on that part. And I'm thinking that you're focusing on and emphasizing the reality that when we have a safe container, that it can overcome the judgment that we have for ourselves. And it can encourage, it can energize the aspect of courage inside us that can overcome all of that desire that we have to keep it hidden, and all of the judgment that we have that there's something wrong with me, that can be overcome by this loving container, whether it's your partner or it's a group, and the power of the group again to provide that love that pulls it out of you without force. It just pulls it out like, an extraction of pain. Is that accurate?
Yes. Yeah, I think the self-judgment is only attached to our lack of sharing our truth. And so the more we share our truth, the more we unpack, the judgment goes away. I think judgment knows something's not right with me, but it's not, I'm not right. It's not, it doesn't mean I'm wrong as a human being. It means something in me is not, I know intrinsically there's this gnawingness to my existence that isn't healed. So the judgment comes, well, I'm smart, so why am I not? I'm an intellectual. I can think, I can read, I operate in the world. So what's wrong with me? And that's where the self-beat up comes. So I think the more we share truth, the more we become vulnerable, the more we allow others to give us love, and we can also give love. The judgment just falls apart. I think it goes away. It did for me, my own experience. And I think the judgment's attached to a lack of truth.
Well, can't it also be, I think you were indicating this, that whether it's judgment, guilt, or shame, it's like a tiny smidgen of it is okay to use as information.
Yes.
Because we're not perfect humans, and you're not a perfect man still.
Right.
Obviously, and one of the questions I wanted to ask you, but I think if we can say, oh, that didn't feel right, there's something off with that. That's enough of it.
Yep.
That's enough of it, and then we can just use it as information. I wondered in your journey, and I know that you're still in your journey because we are until we die, right?
Yes.
How you have seen some of those things that you learned in your childhood show up coming out of your own mouth or in your own behavior.
Yeah. So I had never been in the bathroom with my children. I had 3 children, and I could not even be in the bathroom with them. It wasn't until after I went through ALA that I remember the very first time I'm in the bathroom with my wife. She's teaching me how to bathe one of our children. And I mean, it was, and I carried that guilt for, like, what's wrong with me? Like I physically cannot enter their space. And my wife was amazing, and she's like, it's okay, but we didn't go deep. We didn't really unpack, like, well, why? And yet when you say, like, what all I knew, so I have a 4.5-year-old son right now, and I recognize things that he is doing are things that I did. And yet the response that I got was violence and fear. And I don't hit my children. I want to be the safest person in the world for them. And breaking that cycle is equivalent, as I described, to taking a machete to the jungle every single day and just bushwhacking a trail. Because I know the instinctual, I know the imprint. And so I think if this is what you're asking, like, what from my childhood do I carry? I have been able to heal, not only break the cycle of not passing on abuse, intimidation, fear, hitting in the name of love, teaching that stuff it in, tough it out, suck it up, grind it, teaching all that. But instead, for instance, my son a couple months ago was telling me, oh, Dad, look at my muscles. And I looked at him and I said, Colin, I want you to know. I was like, yeah, your muscles are great. I want you to know, you never have to tell me how tough you are. I know you're tough. You never have to prove to me how tough you are. I know you're tough. And he looked at me and I looked at him, and I started crying because I was telling myself, I was telling my 4.5-year-old self what I wished I would have heard. And to really break that, that cycle. So I'm not sure if I'm answering your question directly, but how it comes out is I know I could perpetuate the abuse. I could continue that. I know what it feels like. I know the intimidation. I know the look. I know the insanity. It's always going to be with me. I feel it always.
Well, and I think if I'm understanding you correctly, that we all have an impulse toward violence.
Mm.
We all have that impulse. It's like, I didn't hit my daughter either, but there were times when I just wanted to wring her little neck or her big neck. She'll be 30. She's 30 today, actually.
Happy birthday.
Yeah. So, we all have those impulses that your father acted out.
Yeah.
And, of course, the compassion for your dad or your mom or whoever it was that did it. I mean, I was just, again, I was making an assumption.
Yeah. And I've kept it because both hit.
Yeah. So, we all have those impulses to express our pain in destructive ways. Again, you mentioned earlier, we have the impulse to use sexuality to act out our pain.
Mm.
We have that impulse, whether it's, having an affair, or it's compulsive masturbation, or it's pornography, or whatever. Yeah. And so it's like, what do we do with the, I don't know if they're natural impulses or they've been trained in us, but we all have impulses.
Yeah.
And when you have a traumatic childhood like yours, that impulse is there. And it sounds to me like what you did, rather than acting out that violent impulse, was that you shut down any possibility of it. That was your way of handling it, was to go inward and shut it down.
Yes. And my brother and I, not to tell his story, but he externalized it and I internalized it.
Yeah, and not allowing yourself to go in the bathroom with your children. I don't know what traumas happened to you in the bathroom, but the idea of, I don't want to repeat that, and I don't trust myself.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to avoid that whole thing. And I think that is a lot of what men do, is to avoiding relationships, avoiding sexual contact, because they're afraid they might do something that they don't feel good about. And so they just shut it off. And that makes me so sad.
Yeah. And that's why we get to be that's why I'm on a mission to see the hurting. Wherever there's pain, we get to heal. And wherever there's a healed person, they get to go out and heal others. And this is the time. I really believe this is the time.
I do too. And it reminds me, again, on the macrocosm as well as the microcosm, that a lot of people, I'm not saying pro or con, but a lot of people are upset about the political climate in our country. And yet, to me, it's like, if we can be neutral about it, we can say it's being revealed to be healed.
Yeah.
And that's the global context of, it's all of this pain of humanity. It's being revealed to be healed if we don't self-destruct first.
That's a beautiful way to say it. I agree. It's a gift. I say make it as dark as possible, because when light appears, it is no longer, is that light? It is clear as day that is light, that is healing, that is love, that is truth, that is good, that is peace, that is safe. Great. If it has to be a little darker, so be it. And yet we get to stand in that place of love for all people. And yeah, I agree. And when people get hung up on the issues of politics and it's just another mechanism to keep them under control of something that they have no control of themselves. And so to stand in the place of love, stand in the place of healing, this is the greatest time to be revealed so they can be healed. 100% agree.
Yeah, and that's what you're all about. And I'd like you to, I want to summarize now, that even coming from the darkest places of suicide and self-hatred and self-deprivation, that there is healing, and that if we have the courage to do that, to go toward the healing, instead of just continuing to say, I'm okay if I look okay, and, to have that courage to go deep and to seek transformation in all the different places. And then, of course, you can become such a blessing to the world, which is what you have done with it, Lucas. And I'm so proud of you. And I'm so in support of what you're doing. And I'd like you to talk about your upcoming retreat and some of the other things that you're doing, please.
Oh, awesome. Thank you. I have men need a safe place. And so what I'm doing is I speak, working on second book. I have 2 podcasts, the Golden Rule Revolution, like you said, the Vulnerable Hero podcast. And the Vulnerable Hero is really geared towards men understanding that their power is in vulnerability and they get to be the hero once they get to heal. And so I am leading retreats, and I've led retreats in the past, and starting them back up again. It's called the Vulnerable Hero Retreat and Legacy Experience. And why legacy is important is I think most men, specifically in the business world, in corporate America, think of legacy as what they obtain and build and have. And that is not legacy. Legacy is what you do for others. What impact in the world? Abraham Lincoln, Gandhi, Martin Luther King. These are people that did things for others. Did they have possessions? Are there buildings they built for themselves? No. They didn't create these castles to, have everyone look at their grandeur. They gave of themselves to the world, and that is legacy. And I really believe that every human being on planet Earth truly wants that legacy to be known of them. So the Vulnerable Hero Retreat and Legacy Experience, it's a 90-day program where I take 12 guys in the mountains at this incredible lodge, absolutely beautiful, right on the water, where we fish, where we hike, but we have a program to go through the 5 steps of legacy, which I call its relationship with your significant other. It starts with your relationship with husband or with your wife or your husband, whomever you choose to do life with, that relationship. And then it's parenthood. It's being a father. It's, if they're not a father now, what does fatherhood look like, down the road? If they choose not to be a father, what does helping impact the lives of children look like? But it's impacting children. Then it's health. It's mind, body, and soul. What does health look like for you? Because unless you're healthy, you can't go out and impact. The 4th step is career. I think most men put career at top. If I achieve this, if I have this, then I can,
Right.
finally. No, career is 4th on the ladder. And believe this is where I used to be. I had my own ad agency for 10 years and it was all career driven. And so career is 4th. What impact are you leaving by the work that you do? And 5th is friendship. Who do you surround yourself with that holds you high, that you feel safe enough to do life with and are on a mission together? So those are the 5 aspects, prongs of what I consider legacy. Those tied together create the legacy that we leave as people and specifically as men, as I'm working with. And so it's an incredibly powerful time. And then we do week group calls, and it's the time to build tribe with men that want to go there, that want to have that safe space. I talked to one guy who signed up, and I was like, do you have anyone else that you want to go sign up with you? And he's like, no, I don't want to know anyone that's going. And I'm like, okay, he needs the safe space to unpack. And I'm like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. And so I have a co-facilitator, and it's just going to be an incredible time. So I'm excited about that. And
I love the word legacy because it really brings up the reality, Lucas, that we are going to have an impact.
Yes,
yeah, exactly. We're going to have a legacy. And what do you want it to be, guys? What do you want it to be? Let's do it let's consciously choose what legacy we want. And then we have to work our asses off to make that possible. And let there be no mistake, your retreat or any other kind of real transformation is going to be hard work, but the reward is, as you said, it's freedom. It's
Yes.
You reaching your potential. It's you being a gift to your family and to the world. It's you feeling like a blessing rather than a curse. And how much is that worth?
Exactly. The first time, and I know we're going long, the very first time I shared everything in that training that I went through that you and I went through, it was as if I had been living underwater my entire life. And when they said, what else do you want to say? And I said everything that really was deep, the deepest in me. I could breathe. I was like, oh, this is what air is. This is oxygen. This is life. This is my lungs had never experienced that sort of freedom when I finally unpacked everything. And when I say freedom, like, that is possible for everyone to experience. Everyone gets to experience freedom. And the only way out is through.
Love that. The only way out is through, and we cannot do it alone.
That's right.
We cannot do it alone. And so, I just want to say to the audience, whether you choose the path of the vulnerable hero or some other path, choose something and do it.
Yes.
You're worthy. You're worthy of being free of all of those old traditional hurtful traumas that have been perpetrated on all of us, male and female, because of all those rigid old ideas. And let's break free of those. And that's what this program's all about. My show is all about too, is just helping us break out of those things. And I'm so aligned with you because my tagline is from my heart to yours, and it's all about love.
Yes.
It's all about love and support, and you are just a perfect fit. I knew you would be, to talk about this topic of what it's like to be a man and how we can break out and find freedom. So thank you so much, Lucas. I love you. I love you. I love you. And I am a big stand for what you're doing in the world. And I see big things for you now and in the future. And I can't wait to see what you create.
Thank you. I love you too, Helen. Thank you.